Having raced to Jyllandskloof near Greyton on stage 2, Wednesday the 23rd of March was the first morning in the second race village. The usually quiet country village is a rural oasis in the heart of the Overberg wheatfields. Horses and children range free on the dusty streets, and mountain bikers are welcomed year-round. The region hosts 2 stages of the 2022 Absa Cape Epic and provides nearly 200 kilometres of gravel roads, dual tracks and sublime single tracks, which is a point of concern for everyone in the race, including the CM.com elite women. The opening 3 days have been anything but easy, and stage 2 is particularly challenging. At 123 kilometres, it had the added difficulty of requiring the teams to race into a headwind all day. As such, the early breaks were short-lived. The Oak Valley single tracks provided respite from the wind before having to battle the southeaster on Cut Pass and Van der Stel's Pass. The leading teams kept their powder dry for the pivotal ascent, Jacques Climb. There, BMC MTB Racing and 91 Songo Specialized dropped Simtech ZA and Faces Roller, only for Hayley Batten to stop to repair her dropper seat post near the summit. This allowed Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot to race off to a hard-earned stage victory. Batten and Sofia Gomez-Villafan launched a valiant but ultimately futile pursuit and had to be content with second on the day. Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield completed the podium. 91 Songo Specialized still held the leaders' jerseys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it just goes to show that this is an epic race and it's super unpredictable. And yeah, we had to adapt and go with the flow and give our best fight, because this race is not going to be easy to win. And I think we're ready for that, to give our best.
After stage 2, Hayley Batten and Sofia Gomez-Villafan lead the CM.com women's race by 6 minutes and 26 seconds over Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot of BMC MTB Racing. Simtech ZA were third, 21 seconds off second, and Faces Roller were fourth, but comfortably leading the Absa African Jersey competition. In the men's race, the ultramarathon stage provided opportunities for redemption for Toyota 91 Specialized and Scott SRAM. Matt Pierce had struggled with stomach issues on stage 1, causing he and Chris Blevins to lose over 9 minutes and the yellow jerseys. For the second day in a row, punctures had cost Nino Schurter. He and Lars Forster found themselves in 8th at the start of the stage. Thus, Scott SRAM were eager to agitate the race, splitting the group into the headwind on Van der Stel Pass. Having dragged a select group clear on the gravel road, the Swiss team attacked again on Jacques Climb, rapidly establishing a 2-minute advantage. But once again, punctures plagued Nino Schurter. This third rear-wheel flat in as many days cost him and Foster their lead. Once the chasers caught Scott SRAM, a sprint finish was inevitable. Schurter and Foster had enough in the tank to fight their way to stage honours, holding off Toyota 91 Specialized, Buff Megamo and the yellow jersey wearing Canyon Northwave team. Despite their run of bad luck, Lars Forster was bullish about their performance in the race thus far.
Yeah, I think we showed that we are the strongest today, so I think the others had a hard time as well, and we just keep going. We delivered already the last 2 days. Today we earned the win, and let's keep going.
The stage 2 results meant that Andreas Seerwald and Martin Stosik of Canyon Northwave lead the 2022 Absa Cape Epic by 4 minutes and 56 seconds over Hans Becking and Jose Diaz of Buff Megamo. Toyota 91 Specialized and Scott SRAM recovered to 3rd and 5th respectively, with Speed Company Racing sandwiched between the pre-race favourites. Stage 3 was another day for large time gaps to be made and lost. At 101 kilometres with 2,250 metres of climbing, it contained a mix of all things epic. Starting with the staple of Absa Cape Epics of yore, district roads. Clusters of climbs and single track offered opportunities to attack, while linking gravel roads would make it difficult for breakaways to stick. For the fans, the Greyton Town Centre Spectator Point provided a great opportunity to see the world's best mountain bikers in action midway through the stage, before they embarked on the single track filled final 40 kilometres. Within 13 kilometres of the finish line, the route turned away from Jyllandskloof for 2 tough climbs and single track descents. That challenging terrain would prove pivotal. The elite men's teams knew they were in for another difficult day, even though the climbs were not as long as those which dominated stages 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's I don't know exactly what to expect from the stage. It's still quite long with over 100 Ks, but not as big climbs as we saw the first 2 days. So we need to see how the stage goes a bit and where we have our chances.
To be honest, I don't know. Maybe there could be some teams which are not in the overall and trying to just go for a stage maybe. But for sure we have to have eye on a Nino and then the buff teams. But I don't know really. I don't know how to imagine today's race. Can be somehow nice, like by the profile, because it should be not that difficult. But also the weather can play the role, and I don't know. We'll see.
The weather, after 2 days of heat and a day of wind, remained mercifully benign on stage 3. But where the temperatures stayed cool, the racing was red hot from the off. Matt Beers had clearly recovered from the bug which laid him low 2 days before. The Toyota 91 Specialized man stretched the group right off the start line and tore up the orchard climb out of Elandskloof. The Speed Company racing team of Georg Egger and Lucas Baum were hot on his heels. Having finished 2nd, 7th and 5th on the race thus far, the Germans were working with a plan on the 4th day of the race. Ahead of the stage, Hayley Batten and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot reflected on some of the factors which make the Absa Cape Epic unique.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think every day we're going to try and win and do our best. I mean, as you can see, it's super the equipment can do anything. You can have any sort of mechanical or physical mishap. So I think, yeah, it's just gaining as much time as possible every day.
Yeah, I start to used to wake up at 4:30, so it's a good thing. Yeah, today will be like a long stage again, but a bit more flat. So we will see how we feel and if we want to make the difference or try to recover. But we can't say now, so we have to see after a few kilometers.
Where the men had flown off the start line, the CM.com women's race featured a less frenetic start. The group remained in close formation as they wound their way across the tributary of the Elandskloof River and out of the race village to the open roads beyond. The open gravel roads are made for Matt Beers. The South African marathon champion dragged the group through the early kilometres at a terrifying pace. In fact, they averaged over 33 kilometres an hour for the first hour. The pace led to stress in the group. Wheels touched and tensions frayed. Despite the shaking of heads, no real damage was done. At least until the Speed Company racing team came to the fore. Then the group blew apart, and Sergio Manticon Gutierrez of Scott Calabandida broke his chain. Perhaps an illustration of the what's required to remain in contention for the 2022 Absa Cape Epic title. Stretched to breaking point by Georg Egger, the riders were strung out in single file until a split was formed. Joining Egger and Lucas Baum off the front were Marco Hubert and Peter de Toy, Maxime Marot and Keegan Swenson, and most ominously, Nino Schurter. The men in yellow, Andreas Sjöwalt and Martin Storsek of Canyon Northwave, had been weary of a move of exactly this sort. The only silver lining was the presence of Lars Forster in the chase group. The chasers were thus never going to let that group get too much of an advantage without a fight. Former marathon world champion Tiago Ferreira and his DMT racing partner Miguel Munoz Moreno were leading the pursuit. The pace required to stay in the break proved too much for Mbuko Typedev, and the South Africans had to throttle back. As did Nino Schurter, after Lars Forster had been unable to bridge across to the leaders on the trails. The efforts of the previous 3 days had clearly taken their toll on the European cross-country champion. In the heat of the chase, Canyon Northwave punctured. This left Sjöwalt and Storsek in the precarious position of a solo pursuit. Encouraged by their success, Speed Company Racing and Santa Cruz forged on. Behind there were more punctures, this time for Baf Megabos, Enrique Vergara and Hugo Drescher. The Spanish team's troubles were perfectly timed, however. The flying Canyon Northway pair caught them as they fixed their puncture. Vergara and Drescher were thus able to hitch a ride back to the group. None of this was any concern for Georg Egger and Lucas Baum. Having received little aid from Santa Cruz's Marot and Swenson, the Speed Company Racing combination were unfazed when their breakaway companions dropped off the pace. The final 55 kilometres would be a two-up team time trial for the young Germans, while the French and American behind battled to maintain their second position on the trails. In this strung-out chase group, the single file line meant that teammates were separated. Near the front, Hans Becking was thus unaware that Jose Diaz had punctured. Fortunately, Baf Megabo 2 were on hand to provide a replacement front wheel. Their teamwork perfectly illustrated the importance of a similarly strong support team. In the Untamed, one never knows when disaster will strike. Having teammates to provide a wheel or aiding in pacing back to the group can be a race-saving difference. But teammates can only do so much. The A-teams still have to pedal their bikes faster than their rivals. A feat which the support teamless Speed Company Racing were achieving. Despite hours on their own, they were showing no signs of cracking. They would have to be strong. The Matt Beers Express was in full flight. Canyon Northwave, Baf Megabo and crucially Scott SRAM had missed the train. In the CM.com women's race, the group rolled through the opening kilometres together. Unlike the previous 2 days when big climbs split the field early in the piece, the Stage 3 profile allowed the slower teams to remain with the leading contenders for longer. Along with the orange jersey wearing 91 Songo Specialized team, the group also contained Faces Roller, BMC MTB Racing, Simtech ZA, Private Client Holdings, the two Live Factory Racing teams, Partners Group SK, Bicycling Sweden and Wintergreen Abyss. When the climbing began, the group started to steadily thin out. One by one, the teams who were well down on the general classification standings dropped from the Amy Wakefield-led group. After 2 tough days of racing, the respite was clearly appreciated by most of the group. Yet there is always the possibility that if the pace suddenly increases after an hour of just rolling through, that the legs will not respond to the change in tempo. Eventually, the formation riding had to come to an end, and Private Client Holdings were the combination to break the rhythm. The team in 5th place on general classification took the race to the top 4. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen simply rode off the front of the group. After a moment or two of looking around, the group elected to let the Private Client Holdings team go. But the attack did enforce an increase in pace. Ariane Luthi initially took control of the chase. The Swiss marathon champion marshalled the group, allowing the leader's advantage to go out to a minute, as one may expect from the tactics of the peloton in a road race. Having refueled at the 32-kilometre mark, the pursuit could begin in earnest. The Private Client Holdings team were unconcerned by the tactics behind them. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen instead just continued to ride their own pace, reeling in A-batch men's teams and steadily making their way through the dual tracks which characterised the mid-phases of the stage. Who better to lead a long-range attack than an Ironman 70.3 champion, or the rider who won the South African Road Race Championships in a solo attack? The group behind was aware of the strengths of the women up the road, but they knew the situation was within their powers to control, so there was no panic in the chase. A patient approach would slowly and steadily reduce the gap to the point where 1 or 2 teams would be able to jump across. The only real question was who would bridge to Rabi and Preen. The answer was 91 Songo Specialized and Faces Roller. Once they joined the Private Client Holdings team, the group of 6 was too powerful for anyone else to catch. Avoiding being caught was all that mattered to Speed Company Racing, but doing so would be tough with Toyota 91 Specialized in hot pursuit. The route pointing skyward once more for a final loop which featured 2 brutal climbs played into the leader's hands. The Beers Express was forced to slow. With their yellow jerseys in growing danger, Canyon Northwave had to respond too. Having spent the best part of 40 kilometres on their own already, Georg Geiger and Lucas Baum were unfazed at being out front alone. Matt Beers and Chris Blevins, having shed Santa Cruz, were no longer dragging anyone with them and were free to chase at their own pace, though the terrain was making that tough. Further back, Santa Cruz were fading through the field, passed by the charging Andreas Seerwold and Martin Storsek. There would be no catching Georg Geiger and Lucas Baum, however. Speed Company Racing were unrelenting in their drive to the finish line. Even hitting the fields of Elandskloof didn't slow them down. They only slowed to celebrate after their victory was sealed. Toyota 91 Specialized crossed the line second, exhausted but happy with their efforts. Canyon Northwave completed the podium, limiting their time losses with another stellar performance. In fact, their advantage was only trimmed by 10 seconds to the new holders of second place overall. Speed Company Racing's victory was concluded in a time of 3 hours, 48 minutes and 33 seconds. Georg Egger and Lucas Baum were 2 minutes and 15 seconds faster over the 101-kilometre course than Matt Beers and Chris Blevins. Andreas Seewald and Martin Stosek were third, 1 minute and 12 seconds behind Toyota 91 Specialized. Scott Stram's difficulties saw them finish 12th on the day and concede 9 minutes to the stage winners. The stage results mean that Canyon Northwave lose time to Speed Company Racing, who move into second, and Toyota 91 Specialized. Buff Megamo dropped from second to fourth. Imbuko Type Dev strengthened their grip on the red Absa African jerseys and lined ninth overall.
It's incredible. 4 weeks ago we weren't sure if we even able to do that because it's also a budget thing. So we're taking part in the Cape Epic with a minimal setup. We just have one supporter, it's my dad, and we don't even have a tent. We're preparing our bikes ourselves, we're cooking for ourselves. If I'm looking at Vila or Specialized, they have a whole crew behind them. They don't have to do anything but ride their bikes, and we are basically the supporter for ourselves. So that's even more worth for me to win here with circumstances like that.
You know, yesterday was maybe the hardest day I've ever had on a bike. And today was a bit easier just because it was shorter, but Matt and I really found a rhythm halfway through and got some time on the rest of the guys behind us. And I think that was a smart race by us. We didn't want to go too hard early, and we really thought the Speed Company guys would come back, but kudos to them for such a strong ride. But yeah, I think, like I said, you know, we found a rhythm now, and hopefully we can carry that through the next 4 days.
Yeah, it was a tough day. It was probably the end for the battle for the overall, but yeah, let's see how Lars recovers, and hopefully tomorrow is another day and he feels better again. But yeah, that's the Cape Epic. It measures all, and yeah, somehow something went wrong with Lars, and that's how it is. Yeah.
In the CM.com women's race, the private client holdings team of Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen had worked themselves into a strong position. They led the lead group into a single-track climb inside the final 10 kilometers and could control the pace. Knowing she could close the gap at will, Mariska Strauss yo-yoed off the back of the group, freshening up her legs for a potential sprint finish. Having worked so hard for a tactical advantage, Rabi and Preen were undone by the course. When the route turned from single to dual track, they were powerless to follow as 91 Songo Specialized and Faces Roller blitzed by. The private client holdings combination had to watch as Sofia Gomez-Villafan, Hayley Batten, Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill rode away to contest for stage victory. Still, their ride had been a brave one. Having pre-ridden much of the route in training for the Absa Cape Epic, the Faces Roller team were at an advantage over the visiting Argentine-American combination. That allowed them to bide their time, allowing 91 Songo Specialized to work on the front until the crucial moment. Then, with a last-ditch effort, Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss forced their way to the front on a dual-track climb, which gave them the priority run into the final single track of the stage. Cannily, Lill and Strauss controlled the pace, slowing the group in order to recover for the sprint. With the rivals on the front, Hayley Batten's well-honed technical skills were showcased for the camera rather than in pursuit of victory. The lead on the trail was worth more with the shortened run-in to Jellenskloof. Faces Roller enjoyed a clear run-in through the final turns, kicked to go clear of 91 Songo Specialized, who knew they were beaten, and powered across the finish line. The victory was Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss's first as an Absa Cape Epic pairing, which made it all the more sweeter. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen's reward for their long break was a podium position on the stage. The result was also the South African pair's best at the Absa Cape Epic. The smiles on the day's podium told much of the story. It was a happy day for South African women's mountain biking. Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill's first Absa Cape Epic stage victory as a team was secured in 4 hours, 50 minutes and 35 seconds. The 2 seconds Sofia Gomez-Villephan and Hailey Batten conceded were immaterial to the overall standings, as with the time Marie Rabi and Hailey Preen gained in finishing third. 91 Songo Specialized still lead the CM.com women's competition. Faces Roller moved up to second, 10 minutes and 7 seconds off the lead. BMC MTB Racing slide to third and Simtech ZA slipped to fourth.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing about Mariska and I, we know how to put a day behind us and start anew every day. And I said to you on the start line this morning, it's a new day we go. And coming across that line in first place was very, very special. We fought hard for it today.
We were kind of hanging out for a few hours, and then it was funny, I told Hailey we need to stay calm until 80K, and then at 40K I got kind of bored, and yeah, there was a group that was off the front, and then yeah, we came up on a very technical section, and I think that's where we gapped Robin. So the moment we saw Pauline was with us, we're like, let's keep pinning it, because we just need to separate him as much as we can. And I think we saw him on a switchback climb, and we had 2 minutes, and yeah, time is the clock is ticking.
We didn't expect it at all, but we knew we both climbed well. I mean, last year when Hailey crashed on stage 3, so at this stage last year, we were riding up front. So when we were up front today, we just continued riding our pace. It actually worked out quite well. We could ride the whole race our pace, and then when the other 2 teams caught us, we could sit on them through the technical bits. So I think we're extremely happy. We just love riding our bikes, and we're having fun every day. So I think, yeah, that's probably why we rode so well today.
Old competitive instincts die hard as Bart Brenchens and Manny Heymans continue to prove.
Yeah, look, I mean, yesterday, especially yesterday with the wind, I mean, Genevieve weighing under 50 kilograms, you know, the moment she was out of the slipstream, she was like a flag fluttering. So we took it a little bit easy on the beginning, I know, because 123 kilometers in any ride is difficult. I mean, and that in the Cape Epic, that's just super difficult. Challenging for the mind yesterday. Good luck to all the people that actually finished. It was just undulating up, and you know, the downs that went past so quickly that the ups were there again, you know. But let's see what today's holding states. Awesome weather out there, so I think the guys are in for a good day.
The cooler weather suited Manny Heymans and his partner Genevieve Weber. They not only had a good day on the trails of Greyton, but had a fast one too. The Absa mixed team added to their general classification advantage with their second stage win of the race. Mirko Pirazzoli and Miguel Martinez kept Carl Platt and Christoph Sauser company on the stage, while Bart Brenchens and Abra Azevedo dominated the Grandmasters, as did Tlala Lisani Ndebele and Tlotlo Selala in the Xara jerseys, though they finished carrying a number board after a crash for Ndebele. The jerseys thus all remained with the morning's category leaders. The second day in Greyton sees the Absa Cape Epic follow a clockwise loop through the region's mountains and valleys. The 82-kilometre long route features 1,650 metres of climbing and is packed with rocky single track. After a gravel road warm-up towards the historic mission town of Genadendal, the climbing and trails begin with rocky horror before dropping into Greyton. Barkenskorp follows with a 9-kilometre long challenging single track climb, traverse and descent. UFO, 65 kilometres into the stage, could present the opportunity for a decisive attack, perhaps by the yellow-chasing Toyota 91 Specialized or Speed Company racing teams. The downhill from the summit is technical and tricky. Punctures await the unwary. 5 kilometres of false flats require a steady grind back to Jyllandskloof and the finish line.
Day 4, stage 3. 3 big days in the legs. The legs will be tested yet again as we leave Greyton and return to Greyton.